Ask the Podcast Coach for May 6th, 2023.
Let's get ready to podcast.
There it is. It's that music that means it's Saturday. It's time for Ask the Podcast Coach, where you get your podcast questions answered live. I'm Dave Jackson from the... You know what? It's a repeat of last week. I just can't turn off my notification. I love to be notified, apparently. You know what we're going to do? That's right. We're doing it again.
What?
You're
going to do the intro again? I got to dance again?
We have to dance again.
All right.
I'm like, here's my problem is I have two. See, they're still, everything is going crazy. Oh wait, I can't close that one. That's got all my notes in it. I'm like, okay, Facebook, you're dead. Yes, go away. I want to leave the page.
Take two.
Right. Take two. Ask the Podcast Coach for May 6th, 2023.
Let's get ready to podcast.
There it is. It's that music that means it's Saturday morning. It's time for Ask the Podcast Coach, where you get your podcast questions answered live. I'm Dave Jackson from the School of Podcasting.com. Seriously. Here's the thing. I don't have Facebook open. I don't have it. Hold on. Dun, 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 dun. One more time with feeling. Notifications on my PC are now off. We'll turn this off because that was on as well. The YouTube video is going to be phenomenal because I don't edit this. All right. Ask the Podcast Coach for May 6th, 2023.
Let's get ready to podcast.
There it is. It's that music that means it's Saturday morning. It's time for Ask the Podcast Coach, where you get your podcast questions answered live. I'm Dave Jackson from the School of Podcasting.com, and joining me right over there, notification free, the one and only Jim Collison from the Average Guy.tv. Jim, how's it going, buddy?
Greetings, Dave. Happy Saturday morning to you. I feel like I'm coming off a 4-day weekend with May the 4th and May the 5th, two made-up holidays that Americans have taken from other or made up or whatever. But we made it. We made it here to Saturday. It took us a few tries. Maybe it was the long weekend hangover that got us there.
That's it. And there's the whole, I don't know about you, by about 10:15, I'm about May the 4th I'm done with that whole thing. Yeah. And then of course I live in Akron, Ohio, about 20 minutes from Kent State University. So there's always the downer of hey, 4 people got shot by the National Guard on this day. And which I worked in Kent for about a year, and actually about 2. And every day, or every year, May 4th, a bunch of old hippies, literally, they just, and they got their, it looked like Halloween, somebody here, there was a sale on hippie costumes, and, but they would march. One had a big paper mache head of George W. at the time. It was great fun. But,
well, it took us 20 years to come up with that, to change it to Star Wars. That movie came out in 1977. Nobody started talking about May the 4th till, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's just funny it took that long to get there. So,
which is good. But you know what goes good with Star Wars?
Yeah, a little coffee.
A little coffee, absolutely. And of course, that lovely coffee pour is brought to you by Mark over at podcastbranding.co. If you want to look good, it's super simple. There's only one place you need to go, and that is Mark over at podcastbranding.co. He is not only an award-winning graphic artist, he is a podcaster. So that whole it's kind of like a radio. Yeah, you don't have to explain that to him. He knows it exactly. And he's going to sit down. He's going to check out your website. He's going to check out your podcast. And the whole goal is to make sure that your brand, hence podcastbranding.co, is in alignment with itself so that you get maximum impact with all of your content. I've used him for the School of Podcasting, Podcast Rodeo Show, Ask the Podcast Coach. All those designs are by Mark. And if you want to see more designs from Mark, go over to podcastbranding.co and tell him that Dave and Jim sent you. And the bonus is he's from Canada, which means he's polite. So go check him out. You're going to not regret it at all. There's a double negative. Podcastbranding.co.
Take me home.
Yes, you're not going to not regret it. That's a double negative.
It's all right. Big thanks to Dan Lefebvre over there, Based on a True Story podcast at basedonatruestorypodcast.com. This week, Chernobyl 2. If you're just having trouble getting out of the doldrums of life,
Right.
head over there, Chernobyl Part 2. And of course, if you want to know how much of that was based on a true story, Dan will have the answer for you. Dan, thanks for your sponsorship.
I did not know there. I knew there was a Chernobyl on. Is this the one on HBO?
Well, this is I'd have to look. I haven't looked at it yet. No, I think this is I don't know. I'm gonna
Because there
say
were
I
so
don't know.
many unanswered questions from Chernobyl. Well, I guess if you think about it, if you go back, I don't know. Well, see, we need to go listen.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, you
there's
need to go check it out.
I'm sure a lot of it is like, okay, here's what it was, whatever, 10 years after it, and then it's been a while. So
Yeah. Well, and remember, Dan talks about the movie made, and then how close was that to being based on a true story?
yeah. Well, our first question comes from the one and only Randy Cantrell. He says, Mac users, can I do it in my Randy? No, that's really Dave.
He just got a brand new Mac.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What multi-track DAW do you use? I have a small need for one for a special project. Hey, it's a podcast question because the answer is it depends. See, if it was a podcast, I would say Hindenburg, and I still kind of say Hindenburg. But on the other hand, Audition is kind of the Cadillac that'll do just about anything. So, and of
Yeah,
course,
but
there's
if you know-
Audacity.
I was gonna say, if you know Audacity already, and it's just a small project, that may be the easiest, most accessible. It kind of depends what you own, Randy. If you own any of those other DAWs, I always say for small projects, don't make them a big project. Go with stuff because if you take on new software, you got to learn it. It takes twice as long. Even if the functionality is pulled back just a little bit, that my go-to would be Audacity on a Mac.
Audacity, I just redid the tutorials at the School of Podcasting, and they've updated the interface, and it's getting better. You know what I mean? I haven't played with their effects yet. I saw where they added a noise gate, which was kind of cool. So that would be my my recommendation. What I need to
a lot of good advice, and this is the problem with it in the chat. Like Logic Pro,
yep.
Hindenburg's out there. What else did I see? Reaper. So,
yeah,
I guess it depends what you already own
and what because I know somebody joined the School of Podcasting once, and they were like, "Oh yeah, I'll have to go through the Audacity course because I use GarageBand." I said, "Hold on a second." I said, "Do you know GarageBand?" And they're like, "Yes." And I go, "Then don't learn a new one." I go, "You can do it." I said, "I'm not a huge fan just from an editing standpoint that in GarageBand you have to make a split after the and then a split before the and then you delete it and then you put them together. And unless that's changed, it's been a while since I've seen GarageBand, but sometimes it just go with what you know. I mean, I still use Sony SoundForge for if I want to edit out ums and stuff. Why? Because it's the first thing I knew, and I was like, sure, I could do that in Audacity and Hindenburg, but I'm like, I kind of know this one, so I do cleanup in SoundForge, and then the finished interview I throw into Hindenburg. So we've solved the mystery. Dan says Chernobyl from HBO. There are 5 episodes. Okay, so that's it. So it's when he says Chernobyl 2, it's the one series. It's the second. It's a really good series. If you haven't watched it, that was like, holy cow. So it's crazy that way. But our here's another fun question. How to be funny is what I'm titling this. I'm starting a podcast, and as the title says, I'm starting a podcast because that's what he put. I'm not sure what to name it, and I'm going for all these things. So here's his laundry list: true crime, folklore. I'm not even sure what folklore is. That like stories of?
Yeah, they may or may not be true.
Yeah, we have one here in out in the sticks parts of Ohio. There's Crybaby Bridge. That if you go there at midnight, and open your windows, you'll hear the whatever. Yeah, that's folklore. Conspiracy theories and paranormal. So he's got a lot on his plate there. I tried looking up ideas online.
And he wanted to be funny?
But it isn't really anything I haven't seen before. So that's his thing. I also would like advice on how to make things funny. because there's nothing more funny than true crime.
Yeah, true
And
crime.
then she got shot in the head. Woo! Okay, or interesting. I'd like to make things funny or interesting when doing this by myself as far as scripting goes. And so it's for me, I looked at the laundry list again. I mean, folklore, you could, I mean, if you're going to kind of poke fun at stuff, like, oh, well, so and so thinks this, not that they would do this or that, you could be kind of sarcastic. But to me, when somebody says kind of how do I make things funny? I'm thinking, I could be wrong. Maybe humor is not your strong suit. I don't know. So I was just thinking, do your friends think you're funny? Because there's a lesson in the school of podcasting. It says, what do you think you're good at? And then number 2, what do your friends say you're good at? Because that might be
yeah, do people tell you you're funny? That's probably like unsolicited.
right.
They go like my number 4 son is we call him ninja humor. Because he just drops in and strikes and then he's gone. And you're like, how does he do it? We laugh and laugh and laugh. We tell him all the time he's funny. And now he never says I'm funny.
Right.
Or I want to be funny. He just is. And I think for a lot of people that humor is a talent that I mean, you can get better at it. You can practice it. You can be ironic. You can be sarcastically funny. You can be self-deprecatingly funny. I mean, some of those things you can learn to do. I think for most people, the key to any humor is timing. And that's the hardest part for people to get. They have a hard time waiting for the laugh. You got to wait. You got to stop, type deal. So I think you can get better at it. I just don't know how folklore and true crime and the other two, they don't lend themselves to now, hey, if you feel like you can get it done, give it a try. I would be interesting to hear.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, the Daily Show on HBO, Last Week Tonight, all those shows are about politics, and often not very fun, politics. They're talking about serious, but they're making fun of it. So that might be a way to do that. But it's Lizzie Borden, the comedy, although Brad was on, probably a month ago, Dr. Brad Miller, who has been recently, he's in the middle of some cancer treatment, and he's starting a podcast called Cancer and Comedy. And that was partly based on some feedback. I said, that makes me want to click it because it has wait, what? Those are 2 words that don't go together. And so,
well, you could make fun of the genre too, right? I mean, you can be ironic or you can be sarcastic around the genre of it. I think like Bill Hader, he's able to imitate the guy from 24 Hours. No, what's the show with the
Kiefer Sutherland?
Yeah, that one.
24.
Is it 20? No.
No.
The news show. Oh crap, I've forgotten. It's 24 something. The chat room will help. Dateline. That's what it is.
Oh, okay.
Dateline. It's not 24. It's Dateline.
Okay.
And the guy has a certain, cadence.
Right.
And I won't do it because I'm not good at it. But so Bill Hader imitates him like interviewing a murderer, right? And you would think, and of course he's very over the top with it and
right,
those kind of things. But it's making fun of the genre, or it's poking fun at the host, not the actual act, right? And so I don't know.
But you're right. Timing. In fact, Steve Martin has an old joke, and he goes, Steve, how can you be so funny? And he's like, well, it really boils down to timing. But I was watching Friends last night because it's on 24/7. Just turn on the TV. There's Jennifer and Ross and the whole gang, and it was a scene between Jennifer Aniston and David Schwimmer, and she's trying to get him to not go do something with his girlfriend, and there's this whole thing, and she's really being ever so what's that whole passive aggressively seductive, right? She's trying to kind of lure him in, and there's this awkward pause, and it was the world's best awkward pause. And then there's a spot there where there's awkward pause, and then if he had gone like another second and a half, it would have been like, hey, did Schwimmer forget his line? because it was really there. And then he goes, okay, bye. And that was the joke. And I was like, man, that whole joke was based on that timing. And that was perfect. So that's hard to teach. That's where, if we go back to Glenn, of course, Glenn's just going to tell you.
Don't be boring.
Yeah. But that's where Glenn says every podcaster should take an improv class, because that's just something you kind of just play with or whatever. But also the other thing that I think would be hard, and I don't know because I'm just sarcastic, but scripting out something funny. I'm not really sure, because I had 3 people. I did something last week and I put it at the end as a blooper, and I was explaining how I said, I'm kind of like, I don't know why, but people make it hard to download a podcast on their website. Like, you go there, you can click and stream it, whatever. But I'm like, yeah, I want a download link, because I'm not going to stay on your website forever. I just want the podcast, especially for the podcast rodeo show. And I said, it's kind of like, let me take it with me. It's like a sample. And I go, it's kind of like the guy back when we had malls. There was always a guy at the food court giving out little pieces of chicken. And I said, so, I want to taste your chicken. And I said, that is the world's worst pickup line. And exactly. So I put it at the end, and everybody was like, dude, that was, I don't know where that came from. And that wasn't written down. It wasn't scripted. It was just a weird thought that came in my head, and blah, blah, blah. So that's where, so sometimes, maybe humor's not your strength. So, do it like a serious show then, and get the facts or things like that. What I know, obviously your company has strengths finders. What if somebody takes that test, what are they going to, I know the answer is they're going to find their strengths, but like, what are the strengths, or are there different categories, or?
Yeah, not to make it a huge commercial, but 34 of these talent themes that we've identified that you can generally apply to business and life for success, just kind of in a general. So words like learner, right? Hey, there are folks who really like the process of learning. They're good at it. They like to do it a lot. They enjoy it. There are some things you can apply to that that would make you more successful. I have one called a ranger, which means it's like a conductor theme. I like to have all kinds of things going on all at the same time, and I can manage lots of things happening at once, and I thrive off that. I'm good in those situations. That's why podcasting has kind of worked for me, especially like doing interview shows where you got to be thinking about what the audience is saying and what you're saying and what your guest is saying, and then you got to get the show from the beginning to the end. That's my number one theme, and so that podcasting kind of fits nicely in that, and it's helped identify me as I think a good interviewer, and hanging out with you. Like, we got all kinds of things, all kinds of crazy stuff going on. No 2 weeks are the same. We don't script anything. That fits for some people. That's not comfortable, but for me, I thrive. So that's those themes kind of help identify areas where you can thrive.
Yeah. The only thing that's scripted is there's that music that means it's Saturday morning. Other than that, the rest is off the top of my head.
And maybe get the episode number right down here,
maybe
before we get started.
Yeah. So let's see if that's going to do what I think it's going to do. I'm playing with things behind the scene. No, I'm not. We're good. Well, we have some fun comments here. So, first of all, Randy says, going back to his multi-track DAW on a Mac, he has to produce an hour-long show for radio, and he needs to insert music and spots. I'm saying Hindenburg. And the reason for that is, let me share my screen, is it's got the ability to drag stuff in, and then later you can figure out what kind of angle you want it to go at. And I'm trying to window. Here we go. So in theory, this is Hindenburg. This is the future of podcasting. And over here, I've got this is the music that I put under our boosts. This is the last 10 seconds. So I will drag that in. So if I were to get rid of that here, I've already got that set up, faded in. So I just go put that into the end. You can rename these, and it's super easy to just say, oh, here's that one section. And if I hold down, I believe it's the Option key on the Mac, I could drag this over here and I could say, wait, that's the ending, blah, blah, blah. So I love it this is why I love it for podcasting. It's made for storytelling. And then there are things in here such as a loudness meter, which comes in handy for radio because you can see how many lufs it is and things like that. So that's why I like, and then you can do things like if you want to fade something out, you just drag it. If I go, wait, I don't need this whole thing, I want to stop it here. It's a pretty handy tool. And my favorite thing, what really sold me on Hindenburg was when I came here and said, show me the equalizer, and it gave me bass, middle, and treble. And I was like, oh yeah, I remember those. That's exactly how my stereo looked like in my living room. So it's a pretty handy tool, and for me, it's the three bears, right? Adobe Audition. Okay. It's got maybe a little too many features in it. Audacity, God love it. More functional than it used to be, but still pretty doggone ugly. And you have to step over things like distortion and things made for a guitar. I'm like, so Hindenburg for me, because it's about storytelling, but you can definitely easily pop in music to that. So that would be my advice. But and
Randy wants to know if he says he has the light version. Should he upgrade? Do you know?
Nah, you should be good. The big thing that the Pro version does is it has a noise reduction knob, which I love because it's one knob that says more. You just turn it up until it tunes out the noise. So if everything you have is decently recorded, then you should be that. And the other thing I think it does is it makes it really easy to basically record whatever you're listening to. So a lot of people will do that if they want to play their what's the whole legal thing? The people they want to play their fair use card, so they're going to pull some audio off of YouTube, and you can record. You can say basically whatever I'm listening to, add that to a track, which comes in handy if you ever wanted to do interviews and you didn't want to use a Squadcast. It makes it really easy to go, I'm on track 1, and whatever is coming through my speakers, which would be your guest, is on channel 2. And I think that's the big difference between. There might be some other things, but I would try it with light, and then
Hindenburg Pro is $400.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to buy it probably today. One of the other, I mentioned I updated the tutorials in for Audacity, and the other program that's in the School of Podcasting is Hindenburg, and I was like, which isn't hard. It's just a matter of I watched my first video and then recreate it in the new interface, and then I'll be pointing out any new features that are there. But it's and then DR says I made my Audacity pretty dark with colored waves. It's super cool now. There you go. So you don't have to stay with the ugly stuff.
Now you missed the emphasis on that. She made it pretty dark mode. Not pretty dark mode, but anyways, it was just you put the wrong emphasis, the emphasis on the wrong syllable.
Yeah. The Coach Dave says, how do you do Ask the Podcast Coach, basically? So what I'm doing is, I think I can do this again. I will share my screen for anybody listening. I'll try to explain what the heck. Yeah, I can go right there. This is Podpage, which of course Ask the Podcast Coach runs on Podpage. You want to try Podpage, go to trypodpage.com, and it's under website. And then there's a thing called Pretty Redirects, which is what we're looking here. So you can see I have Zoom, Abovecast. Wow, that's old. /NPR goes to my affiliate link of my podcast reviews, etc., etc. And somewhere in here is, I have a few. Honest, it's in here. There's one that says live and one that says, well, here's join, which is now, by the way, question. So if you want to join and ask a question, go to askthepodcastcoach.com/question. And here's the one for live. So every week I come in here and I go in and out. This I can't do, but in StreamYard, I go in and you can just basically go to the link on YouTube where the show is going to be, copy that link, and I just come in here and it says, hey, it's going to be askthepodcastcoach.com/live. and I just copy and paste in my YouTube link, and then I go back and update the other one, and it takes all of, I don't know, 10 seconds. The hardest part is just because I have so many of these and again, they're called Pretty Redirects. You do have to have, I believe, the pro version of Podpage to do that. But and the fun thing now is I'm like, I did make one called Question, right? It's in here somewhere. But sponsor Rescue Time Clubhouse.
Can you search by at the top? Is there a search?
No, but that's a great.
Oh.
I'm gonna have to throw that one to Brendan and say, hey, buddy, how about a search? I know it's in
pretty links on WordPress. You can go into the to the the page and
here
then
it is.
Search.
So here's the /question, and that's our link to StreamYard today. So beautiful. And then I will remove that. There we go. So that's how I do it.
Well, during the week, you kind of keep an eye on kind of questions and things that are going on during the week as well, right? And, and Facebook and some of the other things.
Yeah, if I go to, let me see. So that's how I do the whole /live/ whatever. And then during the week, I'm always looking for questions, but most of the time, like this morning, the ones I got, I've been using Reddit a bit more because they kind of ask, in a way, I think, better questions. They're not better. It's just not quite so. What's the best microphone under $100? Which, by the way, everybody knows it's the Samson Q2U or the ATR 2100X. According to Daniel, he says the output's a little louder. I'm like, oh, did not know that. But then the other thing I do is this, which is Podcast Studio Pro, which is free now because there are ads somewhere in here. But if I go into and I don't use this at all for what it's supposed to. Daniel and I use this for the future of podcasting, but you're supposed to come here to your notes. And then in theory, if I drag this down, I could say, hey, this one. So this is the one we just did. How am I funny? So I just copy it. And this is why I use that. It's huge. I don't have to really strain to read that. But if I wanted to, I could have said, hey, put this on episode 12 and then put it here, kind of thing. So if you're trying to plan out your show, it's really handy. But I just basically use it for a big giant note board. So you can see some of the things we might talk about. Jim's early days. We might talk about affiliate marketing. Somebody here is talking about a sports show. And then YouTube, which DR mentioned earlier. And I was like, oh, cool. We can just we'll jump off of DR's comment to do that. So that's the other thing I use to do that. Now, another really cool tool, if you want to, if you're doing research links, now obviously you can use anything for this. You could use Evernote, you can use OneNote, you could use a Google Doc, whatever you want. But I just was playing with it. I was, again, making a video for the School of Podcasting. Captivate has a cool, well, here, let me see if I can demo this. Oh, wow, I have not been to Yahoo in a very, very long time. And I just realized, Jim, how crazy of us not to be talking about, is it the coronation?
Yeah.
We need to ask Craig, like, how
going on today. Big news.
So let's say I wanted to, for whatever reason, there's really nothing here. But anyway, I'll go here. Let's say I was going to mention this in a podcast. Captivate has this cool feature. I can go, hey, I want to mention this particular link, and then here are all my different shows. So if I say, hey, this is for the Akron podcast, I can make a note here about, John Ritter is cool, and then say add a link. And then later when I go into Captivate, I can pull that in and it'll throw the links in my show notes. And I was like, that's pretty slick. Mm-hmm. So it's another way similar to, the other thing I was mentioning, I didn't even say the name of it. It is Podcast Studio, where'd it go? Pro. Let me make sure I give the plug for that. Yes, Podcast Studio Pro. I'll have links in the show notes when we're done here. But that's the stuff I use. Shure SM7B through a Rodecaster 2 with a newly formatted SD card. Although I did buy new cards, I just didn't plug them in.
Didn't get them ready today. Craig says you make the StreamYard overlay in Canva as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I stole that from you. I did the same thing. I have a backdrop for Home Gadget Geeks. Then you just go and change the episode number. Although you almost missed it this week, and I almost missed it this week. So it's one of those kinds of things you got to make sure. And I've done it for, I don't know, I've been doing it now for 6 months maybe. And yet this last week I forgot.
Yeah. And Canva is something, the question of the month for the School of Podcasting at schoolofpodcasting.com/question is, what's your favorite tool? And I'm like, that could be software, it could be hardware. I'm leaving it really open. And as we are talking about this now, man, the thing I use all the time is Canva. And so here's the backdrop right here. And all I do is I come in, I change, because you never even really see the big number behind us. We're in front of it. I'll change this to 436. I'll change this down here to 436 and download it. But and the also is I've never played much with the different like, this is not, Canva made this background blurry, and I couldn't even tell you how I did it. I know it's I took this with the Elgato Facecam Pro, and I went in to edit the photo, and I think it was this autofocus thing that I did. But there are all sorts of cool, it's for whatever it is, $9, $10 a month. It's definitely cool. So it's that's another tool that I use a lot.
Coach Dave asked a good question. He says, do you have a Canva StreamYard template for sizing and different guest numbers, like 2 guests or 3 guests? And
No.
you could do that.
Yeah.
In StreamYard, you just have 2 templates and then update those with the show number, bring both of those into StreamYard. Then you just need to go to the brand tab and flip in between them. Like if you were gonna, like in this case, Dave, yeah, you just flip to it there. In this case, where we have guests coming and going, then you just need to make sure you have both show numbers ready so that you can flip in between the backgrounds. But yeah, you could do that. You would want to move the episode probably over. Well, we already have the episode on the side. Maybe the logo at the bottom down here moves up to the top up here above Ask the Podcast Coach. And
then the other thing that right now I can turn on and off is, this is actually a logo. If you're not watching this, in the upper right hand corner, I have a Scan Me, and it's a QR code. And can you hear the Hells Angels pulling into my driveway?
Yeah, I was gonna say, did you just move to the interstate? Or?
I did, yeah. I don't know what's going on, but so I can add different logos up there. Usually, of course, we all love the duck from StreamYard, and we got Mark's podcast branding, but I decided to throw a QR code up there just for giggles. And
where does that take me?
That will take you, I believe, to my Buy Me a Coffee page, I think.
Let's see if it works. There we go. That was easy. Yeah, buy me a coffee.
There we go. So nobody's bought me a coffee yet, but it's there.
Do you drink coffee?
I don't. I drink. Oh, here we go. Can we take a 10-second tangent?
Yeah.
This is I'm trying this. It is a circle, and I bought was the top. And what you do is, it comes with this little, we're not going to make any kind of
yeah. Keep going. Going. Yeah.
And then what you do is you put this in, and there's a little dial, and this is currently iced tea. And then the more you turn it, the more iced tea is in your water. So it's for the person that knows, like, hey, probably what's in this is not as healthy as it should be. But instead of drinking just Snapple, which is just sugar and more sugar, this allows you to do it. And I was surprised because it actually tastes like tea. And then these are like $3 to replace them. And of course, you just go into YouTube and type in circle hack, and somebody's like, oh, here, you just break it apart and put your own stuff in. But yeah, it was, I think this was $5 and the flavoring is $3. And so far it's not bad. There are times when I take a big old, I've learned that I have to tip my bottle and then drink, because if I tip the bottle and the water isn't there yet and I start to suck it in, it just has, I'm sucking in air that tastes like plastic. Just like Mom used to make. So there we go.
That's a huge endorsement for that.
Yes, thank you.
But how's that spelled? KL 974 8400 8675 309. How do you spell that thing?
Yeah, CIR KUL. Yeah,
Yeah,
I was,
cool,
and then
cool.
and you would think
Cool.
that like that would be their website, and it's not. It's like drink circle or whatever. But if you go to supportthishow.com/circle and you buy something, I think I get a free one of these, which is
Cool is the way I want you to pronounce it.
Circool, yes. Strawberry and watermelon, or I think I have orange around here. So I'm trying to do the healthy thing. And the more I read into what is actually in a Mountain Dew, I went, yeah, that's just poison.
Yeah.
Anyway, meanwhile,
Nope.
back
healthy choices is what you're looking for.
Yes, trying to make something, yeah. And so I wanted to go back to because DR brought this up. Have you discussed the recent stats out that say podcasts on YouTube is not successful? Why was it successful before? They publicized that, and it's on YouTube Music. Yeah, in other words, people are starting to. I did it this morning, so I'm not going to say the name of the video because I don't want you to go look at it. But I have a video that has about 3,500 views on it, but it's old. It's like probably 3 or 4 years old, and so I made a playlist that should get some traction, and I made that video because I know it's popular. It's a good topic, the number one thing in the playlist. So in theory, if somebody goes to that playlist, which of course now is a podcast in YouTube Music, I'm like, it should be getting more plays than it was. And so far, it's not. Like, it's getting the same amount of nothing that it has for, it gets maybe a play a day if I'm lucky, so it's nothing crazy. Now that's a very limited, that's a survey of one with one video, but I was like, well, in theory it should be going up a little. And when I looked around, the good news is YouTube analytics are insane, but there's still a little confusion because you can go in and say, show me where my traffic is coming from, and then one says playlist, and then another one says playlist page. And I was like, wait, what's the difference between that? So it's going to be slightly challenging maybe to figure out if this is working or not. But here's my thought. I thought about this today. So, let's say, I use right now, probably my favorite app is Cast-O-Matic for the whole podcasting 2.0 thing. And the only thing in there are podcasts. So if all of a sudden Cast-O-Matic announced, hey, we now do soap operas. If you'd like the audio of soap operas, just go to the soap opera tab. And I'm like, oh, hey, thanks so much. Good job on that. And I'm never going to use it because I'm going to Cast-O-Matic for podcasts. So the fact that you've got a music app and everybody's finding their favorite music and they're making their playlist, and they go, oh, by the way, for all you people that love music, here's some spoken word for you. I'm not surprised that the only way that's going to work, in my opinion, is for the person that was using Apple Podcasts for their podcast and YouTube Music for their music stuff. And they went, oh, cool. Now I can put them all in one spot. But I'm like, I don't know. Because for me, what I have found at least is like, Jim, how hard would it be for you to move from one podcast app to another one? Like, are you pretty like, how loyal are you?
I wouldn't like it for like a week, but once I learned I'm a pretty easy, me personally getting in the app, I'm pretty good at making changes. So yeah.
So
if Marco, right, on Overcast, if he like did something stupid and borked the Overcast, I could probably move to any of the other 6 that are out there. I might even go back to Apple. Podcasts.
I haven't in a while, but I when I go in, because there are times when somebody be like Apple Podcast, blah, 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 so I have to go into Apple Podcasts, and they've added a bunch of stuff that I'm like, I need to go maybe listen. Because the nice thing about Apple Podcasts is you can sync it across devices. So I could, in theory, like be on my phone, go on my Mac. I know you can. To the woman in the tube from Amazon, say play such and such podcast on Apple Podcasts, and she does a pretty good job of doing that. What was so weird about that is I asked her to play my show on Amazon Music, and she kept playing the wrong. It was like nursing school podcast or something. I'm like, no, that's not it. But then I said, hey, play the School of Podcasting on Apple Podcast. And she was like, here it is, episode number such and such, blah, blah, blah. And off she went. I was like, that's really weird that it must be an Amazon search then that it couldn't find my show or something. It was really weird. But I'm using right now Pocket Cast. It's a weird thing. I've just been picking a new app and playing with it. And see, you're using Overcast. That's my ultimate favorite of all. Like, the only reason I like Cast-O-Matic is it looks like he stole Marco's code. Like, to the point where I'm like, Marco, you might want to look at that. But Pocket Cast is pretty cool. The one thing that I'm really surprised at in many apps is in Overcast and Cast-O-Matic, you can make a playlist. So let's say you have 3 shows that you listen to and they're all about money. You can make a money playlist and say, anytime there's a new episode from any of these 3 shows, download it and put it over here. And when you click play on the first one, it's great. And when that episode's over, it goes to the next one and the next one. That to me is like the epitome. Like, that's my bike riding playlist feature I need. And so many apps don't have this. What they have is a queue. And this is where I always get on my podcast episode title kind of soapbox, because they don't add it to, like, you are in control of your queue. With Overcast and Cast-O-Matic, it's automatic. And so what makes you put it in the queue is either A, I just love everything Jim does, so there's another Jim show, there it goes. But the other one is the title. And you go, oh yeah, definitely add that to the queue. So I actually, when I'm using some of these apps, I open it up and I go, yep, no thank you, no thank you. So it's almost like a dating app. You're like, yep, swipe left, okay, add to the queue, swipe left, swipe, and I have no idea which one's better, left or right. But anyway, you get the idea. So I'm just kind of like, yeah, this is where your episode titles really do come in handy, because that's what's going to convince somebody, are you going into the queue or not?
It is it is nice to change apps from time to time for house cleaning purposes, or just wipe out all your subscriptions and then wait till you're thinking like, okay, I'm driving, I'm going to take a second and load this podcast because sometimes I think I was guilty of this for a while. I was subscribing to so many podcasts, then they were loading onto my phone, then I was never listening to them.
Yeah.
And so I think from time to time, I just go out, do some house cleaning, wipe out almost everything. Then if it comes back to my mind, like, oh yeah, I haven't heard that in a while, I can go back and resubscribe to it. Not a bad way to kind of do some house cleaning. If you have a phone that, the files are getting bigger, if you have an older phone and you might be taking up most of your memory on your phone with your podcast app, they can get pretty big.
Well, that's what I love about Overcast and Cast-O-Matic. You can say, only keep X amount of episodes for this show. So like, I know there's a daily show I listen to, and for a while there, I didn't realize I had to just set to keep everything. And I would go in, there's this giant list. I'm like, I'm not listening to all those. So I went in and said, okay, keep the last 3. And if I don't get it before it goes away, maybe the content's not that great. Maybe they're not really, maybe if it's something I can skip, then maybe it's something I can skip. So we'll see. But that's and what's cool, the reason I started playing with Pocket Cast is, I believe somewhere in spring, which we're kind of in that time, they're going to add the whole value for value thing. And I thought it was already there, but I know DR says she likes Pocket Cast because they have folders, and that's what I do. I thought folders were like playlists. They kind of are, and they're kind of not, unless I miss something, because I'll go into a folder, click on an episode, but it doesn't go, at least when I'm doing it, doesn't go to the next episode in the folder. It goes back to my queue, and I'm like, that's kind of interesting. So it'll be fun to see when it comes to YouTube and YouTube Music and all the different views and all the stats and things like that. Jim, you play a lot, in a little more than I do in YouTube.
Yeah, and what's interesting, I guess I learned something new this week, and I knew it was there, but we at Gallup, we had done some advertising on YouTube. And you and I harp on this all the time. Like most people, like, how do I get everything in podcasting for free? Well, sometimes if you want eyeballs, you're gonna have to pay for it. And I can't tell you, not because I can't tell you, I don't know what we paid, but we had a video. We're doing a new series on some things. We had a video and we boosted that thing. We got about 175,000 views on it in just a couple hours by paying for it, right? And so that's interesting. You kind of go, wow, 175,000 views is pretty good on a video, right?
Yeah.
So I was looking at the stats though,
I know where you're going.
and there was like zero engagement. Like literally, and YouTube has a really toxic culture when it comes to the comments, right?
Yeah.
And I expected some more comments. I saw the number and I'm like, oh, I bet there's some comments out there. Nothing. Like just zero comments, very little engagement. The videos were a minute and 15 seconds and let's see, a minute and 15. And we did boost we did pay advertising on a long form, a 30-minute video. And yeah, it was really, really interesting. 30 seconds is about all you get if you're going to pay for it. I mean, they'll get the video. They can watch the whole thing. But what I saw in the numbers in the analytics was the first 30 seconds are key. So if you're going to do something like that, if you're going to pay to have it advertised on YouTube, man, that first 30 seconds better be the best 30 seconds of your life on that video. So interesting. I manage the comments. So I go in every day and check the comments for that. And we actually block them all until they're approved. We don't let people put them on and then go back.
Right.
I ask for permission rather than forgiveness on that one, because if we had a comment, my CEO saw it, he just loses his mind. So so we do that a little bit differently. But yeah, I expected with 175,000 views, I expected a few comments, even negative ones.
Right.
We just didn't get them. It was interesting. Now, the nice thing about this is a series we're designing. We want to attract other folks to come and say, hey, look at this. Look at what we've done. And you had 175,000 views, right? Type deal. We're trying to entice some leaders to come in and take Lifting Strengths and then interview with us. But yeah, I just expected, I thought I'd get a little more engagement than in the comments than what we got.
It's always spooky. And the other thing that I find sometimes when I go in with some videos I have, especially if the numbers have gone up and you're like, oh, cool, I got a bunch of views. And then you go and you're like, oh, and apparently, 34% of these people watched, 10.5 seconds. And you're like, wait, what? Like, oh, so that's always, I've seen people that I am subscribed to their YouTube channel. And the whole thing where it's like, today we're going to talk about blah, blah, blah. And then of course they have the cool music and their logo comes up. All right. Hey guys, welcome to the channel. And I'm seeing more people. They're just like, they've cut out today we're going to do the blah, blah, blah. And they just start. And I was like, wow, really? Because that cuts out maybe 5 seconds of a, quick swap. I was like, all right, maybe it goes back to that whole, I hate the goldfish thing because I've said before that's not true. That was just debunked. But just the fact that on one hand, I am the king of please get to the point, but it's kind of crazy that I was like, really? We're going to cut out the branding part of your show? Like, oh, so, but what we'll never cut out, of course, speaking of, let's play some fun music. Our awesome supporters. If you would like to be an awesome supporter, it's super easy. Go over to askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome. And if you are looking to start a podcast, well, I've got courses, I've got coaching, I've got the community, and of course, unlimited one-on-one coaching. And really, if I were to be honest, way too much text on that slide. Go to schoolofpodcasting.com.
You should have Mark clean it up.
Yeah, that's it. The spotlight supporter of the week is the one and only Max Trescott over at aviationnewstalk.com. If you are into planes and if you're a pilot, things like that, or if you just wonder what it's like to be a pilot, check him out, aviationnewstalk.com. I mentioned earlier that if you are looking to make a website for your show, you can Tripod Page at tripodpage.com. That is my affiliate link, but doggone it, I love Podpage. If you need more Jim Collison, and who doesn't, then just go over to the averageguy.tv. And if I were to say one thing, Jim, on this slide,
yeah,
it's if I get it, but that .tv is, see, now I see why you did that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I see that. Never mind. Don't change a thing. It's
okay.
Perfect.
Thanks.
If you'd like to be an awesome supporter, then it's super simple. Just go to askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome. And to be a featured supporter of the week, you do have to be at the $20 level, but we appreciate all levels. And speaking of that, you need more coffee?
I do. And I didn't make that logo, by the way. A designer made that logo.
Well, there you go. Now, here's the fun thing. How do I turn off the rockin' music? There we go. And now I got to get your coffee.
Faking it now because I already poured it.
Yeah, I do. One thing on it's Tangent Tuesday here on thanks to all the awesome supporters. I'll say this as quickly as I can. I bought myself out of my second marriage basically because I was like, I don't want to die.
Not where I thought you were going with that.
No. But here's the cool thing. Due to things like our awesome supporters, one of the things I inherited was when I used to make jokes about a really large tax bill. That wasn't a joke. And to make a long story short, it's not paid off, but I got a consolidation loan, which is going to make my life a whole lot better because it turns out the IRS not really good when it comes to the interest rates.
No.
And but I couldn't get a consolidation loan before because I had a giant tax bill. It was kind of a catch-22. And so that has now happened. And later today, after the show, I'll be going to irs.gov and going here.
Take nice.
Nice. So that's
it's nice. Rid of that kind of thing hanging out. You're even though you're still making payments.
I'm still making payment, but my life is gonna. And it was like, yep. I've just been because when I went to do this after I got divorced, I was like, they're like, yeah, sorry, you got too much debt, buddy. And I was like, yeah, I know. I just bought it, and so I've just been slowly chipping away and blah blah blah. So thanks to all the supporters, I really do appreciate that. So, DR has a question. Have you seen the new show on Peacock? Actually, just cut Peacock. And Hulu. I've been on a whole like less is more kind of kick lately. Mrs. Davis, it's great. It's all about the algorithm is guiding our lives. Its writing is fresh and witty. No, what I'm watching
it won't be now with the writer's strike.
Yeah.
I wonder how many episodes they have. Wait a minute. In the can. Yeah. I wonder how many they have to get ready. This may be an opportunity, this writer strike that's going on here in the United States.
Yeah.
A good opportunity for podcasters.
Right? Yeah, because people are going to need something. And they're like, well,
depends on how long it goes and some of those kinds of things.
But. I forget. I think it's the late night guys that they're throwing on weird stuff because they're writers, that's
some of them are refusing to do the, to support the writers.
Right.
They're doing, they're saying, no, I'm not gonna cross the line. Right. And so we're probably gonna see, again, it depends how long it goes and some of those kinds of things, but probably gonna see a lot of reruns. We're probably gonna see some recycled content, probably a lot of reality. Like you haven't had enough reality, you're probably gonna get more, which just podcasts. But.
Well, the thing about reality TV is I hate to pop your bubble. It's actually not reality.
No, it's true.
It's written, so when you saw, on the Gene Simmons Family Jewels and he happened to break down in Las Vegas and it just so happened that Carrot Top was the guy that came to help him. Mm-hmm. It turns out that wasn't just a coinky dink. Mm-hmm. That was, That'll be it. Dan has the great, but that's it. Who needs writers when you got Chat GPT?
Did you see that commercial that Chat GPT or not Chat, but AI made commercial? They fed it in and it was, you've seen some of those weird pictures. Like AI in a lot of cases is still not good at faces.
No.
And so it's doing all these weird things where like it's a beer commercial. So they got a beer and the guy's tongue goes out to the beer instead of it. And you're like, oh, that's just not right.
Yeah.
Now there are some AI services, Journey something, I forget the name of it, where the facial stuff is really, really good. I mean, there are some that are better than others at this point, but generally in AI art, hands and faces are a little questionable. The text too. There's a lot of AI. Surprisingly, in a lot of AI art. It doesn't handle text very well. So if you're trying to like show an iPad with some text on it, it's all kind of garbled and stuff. Now, maybe there's some things you can do, some tricks you can do with AI to make that better. I'm sure there are Midjourney. Yeah, Dan threw that. Thanks, Dan. So today in the AI space, there are offerings and services that are, some are better than others. So they're not all the same. You got to try out others. This Midjourney does really well at faces, but others not so good. The one in Canva, not so good.
Yeah,
Not so good with faces.
I was trying to find it because I think I paid $25 just to play with it, and it was a website. You gave it 20 pictures of your face, and then it came up with these headshots, and there were probably, and you got, I don't know, maybe 15, 20, whatever. And I thought I had a post on this on
They
my
kind of
Facebook.
remind me of the old glamour shots.
Yeah.
Remember the old glamour shots. Is this going to be, is AI art going to be the glamour shots of this generation? Like, are we 20 years from now, are we going to look back at all this AI generated art stuff and go, man, that was big hair?
Yeah. Well, the thing that was interesting about it is I always kind of joke that I have shark teeth. My teeth are horrible. But these two, especially up front, are crooked. They're kind of, well, it straightened those and then took the ones that are kind of straight and made them crooked. And I was like, wait, what the heck? But I always wondered what I would look like with straight teeth. And now I know, thanks to ChatGPT or whatever, the
AI. What I've found helpful with AI art is just backdrops for stuff that I'm going to cover with my own, with logo or words or things like that. And so kind of gives me a nice, you can go out and kind of create give me a beach image with the sun going down, and I want sand on the bottom half, and it'll make a really nice kind of background for you that then you can grab and use on your website. And I have found, and then I put words over it. I found that's worked really well for me.
My favorite was the first time we brought up AI generated art. I used it for our artwork, and I forget what it was. I just remember the person was sitting at a desk and they had 6 fingers.
Yeah. That, now, kind of weird if the AI can't handle knowing that the human has 5 fingers, and it makes, like, is it really that smart?
Yeah, that's the whole, it's artificial intelligence.
Wouldn't that be an important thing to kind of teach it, is like, humans have 5 fingers in most cases, not all, but
yeah. So it's again, it's artificial intelligence. On the future of podcasting that's coming out on Wednesday, we were talking about how there are companies now that are using AI to listen to your podcast, and then kind of like a food label, like this person is, a mid-level risk to put your ad on it. It's called Barometer. And we're kind of like, there's part of us that goes, I don't know about that. But on the other hand, if it finds a super niche podcast that wasn't getting any exposure, and somebody goes, hey, do you know, we're looking for this type of person, they go, oh, actually, there's a podcast over here. So again, as always with any kind of AI stuff, you have to kind of wait and see. Coach Dave says, I'm waiting for AI to move from facial recognition to facial laser sculpting from your bathroom. That'd be awesome. Just cut that.
Don't twitch.
Yeah.
Just don't twitch. Don't sneeze.
When I was at NAB, so this was probably 4 years ago, if not more, and they had this giant, humongous monitor in this booth. And there was a camera, and as you walk by the booth, you'd see a little red square go over your face. And it was like, so it's NAB. There's thousands of people. Yeah. And it just caught every single person. And I was like, I don't know what it's doing to my face, but that makes me worried. I'm like, it's just that whole welcome to the new world.
But Dave, think about the thousands of hours of your face on YouTube.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Like, that's always my, when I see those kinds of things like privacy, and you're like, oh yeah. And then I think, wait a minute, there's so much of me everywhere else. It doesn't really,
exactly. If you're worried about privacy,
it's already gone.
Yeah, it's like,
it's already gone.
89, probably something like that. Here's a fun question.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard of a podcast host? So I'm assuming when you say that, you mean a person, not like a media host, playing fast and loose with stats to make it look like you need to upgrade your service. Oh no, he does mean a service. You need to upgrade your service when you don't really need to. Not of any of the companies I deal with. the only time you run out of space, here's what's happening right now, at least at Libsyn for my chair, is again, I don't know where this is coming from, but everybody thinks they have to have video. Well, video files are ginormous compared to an audio file, and people keep running out of space. And I will politely say, look, we'll take your video. You have to go upgrade to get more space. Or you could just upload it to YouTube for free, strip the audio out, upload it here. You'll have tons of space. But that would be no, and especially here's the thing with stats. In theory, if whoever you're playing with is IAB certified, you can't really tweak things to be wrong because you'll lose your certification. So my guess is, I don't know if you don't want to name them, that's fine. But I'm like, my guess is it's not Libsyn, Blueberry, Captivate, Buzzsprout, Podbean. It's Fred's House of Hosting or something, or maybe somebody that just got into it. I God bless anybody who wants to get into media hosting right now, because I'm like, that is you know what I mean? It's like, and if you're not doing anything different, it's like, holy cow. But
I think my 2024 prediction for Ross Brand, Ross always does that end of the year prediction, is I think we're going to lose a few hosting companies in 2024. I think we've kind of maxed out the number that can actually be supported in the space. And we're either going to have some go out. I was just at podcasts.com this morning. They're a host provider, been kind of low end, been around a long time. Their site didn't work. You kind of, and this is not the first time this has happened, but you kind of wonder, eventually these companies need to make money. So there'll probably be some consolidations. I think for companies that are in the space and making money, now might be the time to start looking at acquiring some of that business from others, pulling it in. I think we'll see a consolidation, and I think some folks will drop out.
Yeah, I remember, I want to say it was Pinecast, really nice guy. And he kind of had this weird a la carte version of like, hey, if I just need hosting, if I want stats, it's another $1. If I want this, if I want a tip jar, it's this. So he made it like a buffet. Really nice guy, but it's a guy in his basement, like a really nice guy that's a, coder or whatever. And he built this thing and runs it in. Well, I mean, look at, oh crap, the guy from Maple Grove, Christian Johnson. That's a guy that's like, it's him and his dad, not a huge group over there as far as I know. So, you might end up with a host that's just, some guy that threw it together. There's it's a podcasting 2.0 thing, but they actually have open source script that if you're, if you want to get your nerd on, you can, rent a server, throw this code on it and make your own media host. So, but it would be, the only, and they don't do it on purpose, they just suck, is SoundCloud. SoundCloud stats are horrible. And the reason for that is if you Google the phrase buy SoundCloud plays, you can see where you can get a couple thousand for like $5, which is why if you're using SoundCloud, who for the record have not implemented things from Apple that were put out in 2017. Think about that for a second. They just, no sponsor is going to sponsor a show on SoundCloud, because you could say, okay, it's, whatever, $25 CPM, and then spend $5 to get 3,000 stuff. So,
well, Randy, if you feel like they're, if they're making things up, right?
Yeah. Move.
That should be your indication not to just say, well, thank you, but no, thank you. Or they're trying to twist the stats to get, because there is, listen, the differentiation of podcast hosts now is will help you drive listeners to your show. Now, that's what everybody wants, right? And they struggle to do it on their own, and they struggle to figure out ways to get it done. And so if podcast hosts can say, oh, if you host with us, we'll get you listeners, that's a big deal, right? Because that's what people want. So there's probably a lot of pressure in that space to kind of just, they're not, maybe they're fudging just a little bit, or taking a little freedom with it, or whatever. So, but if you don't feel comfortable, I think that's a good indication to say thanks, but no thanks.
And that's the one thing that I always, before I try any new media host, the first thing I check is, do you do 301 redirects? And can I do it myself or do I have to contact support? Because that enables you to leave and take your audience with you. So keep that in
Yeah.
mind. The other thing, speaking of things fudging the numbers, I don't know if you saw the one little image I had here. If we go back here, if anybody's wondering why does Dave have a picture of himself saying "oopsie," that is I had a really weird experience this week. So first of all, insert whatever it was. It wasn't Podmatch. It wasn't Podcast Guest. It was one of those 8 million places that you put your name there and people can find you as a guest. So I get a thing like, hey, would you like to be on our show? We spotlight local businesses. And I'm like, sure, great. And they're like, great. We'll have our so-and-so call you and set up a date. I go, you don't have a scheduling link? They're like, nope. So I'm like, okay. So we scheduled a time to get on the phone so that we could schedule a time. So already I'm like, this is way too heavy. And so the guy calls, hey, this is the show. And I'm not going to say what the show is for the record. We do blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. Like, sounds great. I'd love to come talk podcasting about it. Great. Here's your link. It'll be on this day at this time. We're going to call you. And I go, wait, the interview is going to be over the phone? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay. Because I'm thinking, that's like, for me, you put a gun to my head if somebody has to dial me.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
the worst.
I don't want to hold that thing up to my face. No way.
It's the audio. It's the worst audio available. So
Right on.
and they send me the questions, and it's basically just the who, what, why, when, where of the School of Podcasting. And so I'm like, okay, well, like a good guest, I want to go research my guest. So I go to their website, and they're kind of I don't know what it is really. Their screen was different. And as I scroll down, I mean the size of my head, a giant button, top 1.5% of listen notes. And I was like, so in one of the things is like, what do you do? And I'm like, am I going to mention listen notes here? Like, so they, the day comes, they call me, I'm on the phone. They're like, so what do you do? I'm like, oh, well, I help people plan, launch, and grow their podcast. And I said, there's a lot of bad information out there, things like ratings and reviews and listen notes things. So I just threw it out there because it's live streamed. So that was fun. And it was 5 minutes. It was really, and the whole time I'm like, wait, so every episode is just a pitch of another company. I'm like, who's the target audience? It was really weird. And then the phone rings after the interview. And they're like, hey, we just want to say thanks for having you come on the show. And I'm like, great. And the guy was like, how weird was it that you're a guy about podcasting on a podcast? And I'm like, okay, that proves you have no idea. Like, you guys did zero research on who I was. And I'm like, yeah, and he's like, well, that's what's kind of funny because, usually we talk to people now, and we actually have a service if you would like to, start a podcast. Yeah. And we are in the top 1.5% of listen. And I went, hold on. Like, you don't quote me the listen notes. And I go, you do know. I'm like, look, we're both podcast people. Like, you do know that's crap, right? And he's like, why do you say that? I go to listen notes. I go, you're competing against every show that ever was. So congratulations, you're beating that show about, whatever, the XFL from 2009. I go, there's that. And I said, so either A, you're unaware of that. I said, or B, you are aware of that, and you're kind of preying on the uninformed. I go, and that's not very nice to do. I go, I don't want to be a jerk. I go, maybe half a jerk, but I don't want to be a whole jerk. And the guy's like, no. He goes, well, that's okay. He goes, no, that's, I get it. He goes, and I go, I'm probably not really your target audience. And he goes, yeah. And he goes, and really that's subjective. And I go, no, it's not subjective. It's not. I go, look at Apple. I go, they have like 3 million downloads of their app. I go look at listen notes. There's 4,000 people that are using their Chrome extension. I go, granted, maybe people aren't using the Chrome extension. I go, but that's a really, 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 really small pond. And I go, and you're saying you're a big fish and you're not explaining that. And he was kind of like, okay. He goes, well, really, you're the first person that's called us out on that. And I go, well, I go, I've been telling everybody I know. I go, but just, I go, really, I don't want to be a jerk. Thanks for having me on, blah, blah, blah. But it was just fun that I was like, all right, I gotta But I thought it was like, so the interesting thing was the whole time I'm like, this is a weird podcast because there were like 4 people to produce a 5-minute podcast. And the 5-minute podcast was just a pitch, which I'm like going, who would listen to this show? Oh, and by the way, the pitch comes via phone quality. So it's, my show's the school.
Yeah.
And I was like, and then when they called back and said, would you like to start a podcast? I'm like,
There you go.
what this whole thing is.
That's what it is.
It's like,
Is your phone call going to end up somewhere? Did they actually produce something that they're going to put?
I will
somewhere?
be interested to see. Yes,
Okay. I'd ask for the name of the podcast, but it'd give it away. So
Yeah,
we won't do that.
Yeah, so it will be,
Yeah.
if it does, I will point it out. But it was the whole thing was odd. And I've run into that before. I had, if you've ever seen in Facebook, and look, you do you, right? You do you. But they're like, hey, our podcast is looking for, small businesses and entrepreneurs looking for exposure. That's who we interview. And I signed up for that. And again, I got a big giant pitch at the end because they think, even though that one, I will give them credit that they knew who I was and they were saying, let's get Dave to say how great podcasting is so that people will then hire us to help them with their podcast. I get that totally. But I've just run into that a few times where you're like, wow, this seems like a great fit for me. And I didn't have to do anything and they really want me on the show. And then you get done and you're like, oh, it's a pitch.
Too good to be true. Probably is. Right.
Yeah. So that was a fun little experiment.
Yeah.
To
well, I've been getting pinged on LinkedIn a lot more. Folks wanting to follow, and then as soon as you connect, they're like, "I want to help you with your podcast." And I get the sales cycle, and I get the overcoming objections thing, and but you're really like, really, no, I don't, I'm not interested. Like, and then, or sometimes they'll send you an email. You get this all the time. And if you don't respond to it, you get one automatically 4 days later, right? Hey, just want to bring this to your top of your inbox. I haven't heard from you. And so I found I actually have to get that to stop. You have to say, please remove you from your marketing lists.
Yeah.
So that you get, so that they actually take you out. And then you should probably report them if they don't. Now, I don't have any way of tracking those things, so I don't know, but seen a lot of that recently too.
That is something that is really getting under my skin. And I'm trying to like be a little more like slow to anger, right? I
like it.
People, at least the members of the School of Podcasting, they say, wow, you're so patient. But there are things like that. That's what drives me nuts. I had this guy, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. Would you like to have this person on your show? And he's emailing me on my Akron podcast kind of area. And I was like, well, if that person's from Akron, Ohio, and he has a local business, by all means. If not, please remove me from the list because that's what this show is about. Thanks so much, blah, blah, blah. 3 days later, I thought I'd bring this back up to your attention. And you can see my reply. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, I'm trying to be nice, but obviously you didn't read my reply. I'm just letting you know if I get another email from you, I'm clicking the spam button in Gmail. So please remove me from this list. So we'll see what happens. But I was just like, it was so obvious that it's just a robot. It's just an odd, they throw emails into it. Jessica Kufferman had one that was just horrible. It was just so obviously, it was like, great show. You're awesome. Yeah. Blah, blah, blah. Here we go. See if I can find it. Okay, this is it. Hello, I hope this message finds you well. I am reaching out to express my admiration for your incredible podcast. And then in brackets, podcast name.
Yeah. Oops.
Yeah.
Oops.
And to inquire about the possibility of being a guest speaker on an upcoming episode. I've been an avid listener of your show for some time now, and I truly appreciate the thought-provoking discussions and insightful content you consistently deliver. The way you engage with your audience and explore diverse topics is truly inspiring. Mm-hmm. So it's just one of those like,
truly inspiring. Yeah. They're so inspired by your bracketed podcast name.
And my guess is that was probably written by ChatGPT. So
probably.
Yeah. Coach Dave's LinkedIn. There's some sort of robot that you can buy for LinkedIn. I've seen them on Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
And the minute you do anything, it's like bam, and they just start the, but he says, I love all the LinkedIn in-mail pitches that ask me if I would like to by a service that my company does, and it's
Mhm.
prominently displayed on my profile. And it's just like, yeah, hey,
Yeah. Yeah.
Mr. Painter, would you like me to paint something for you? It's like, yeah, that's kind of what I do. Or he says the headhunters that solicit me when I have a "we're hiring" flag flying in my title profile clearly says that the firm hiring is my firm. Yeah, so very strange. Form letters
I
are awful.
I think I'm gonna start sending them back just links to my videos. Like, see if I can get some clicks out of them. Like, you know, "Hey, I have an interesting message for you." Maybe that's what I should start doing is like, "Hey, I have an interesting message for you," and then a YouTube link. That's just to one of my videos. It's just to get them to watch it, right? Kind
Yeah,
of thing.
Craig
Get
says,
some extra clicks.
Thanks for your email. What exactly did you find inspiring about my podcast?" Yeah, that's
They won't answer.
they won't. I've done that in the past where I'll be like, "Oh, here's a video to show you how to um connect and get my scheduling and all that other stuff." And it's one of my videos where I'm explaining what a bad pitch is and that whole 9 yards. For a while I was saying I only do guest booking through Podmatch and sent them my affiliate link.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So I was like, all right,
Mhm.
yeah. But most of the time I just delete them.
I'm gonna send them to my HelloFresh affiliate link, right? Be like, "Hey, have you had a good meal lately?"
And
HelloFresh.
I've also done the, wow, your guest sounds like a really amazing person. They should have their own podcast. And I will just, every spam, I will just knock it back over the net.
Yeah.
Here's here,
Yeah.
let's schedule a call. Blah,
You
blah,
got
blah.
spam for me. I got
Yeah,
spam for you. Head out to my affiliate link at
Yeah.
Tripod Page.
I have, if I get enough of those in a day, so by the end of the day, I'm just like, I've been so close to launching the like bad PR podcast or something and just start calling people out. Hey, today I got this email from Bart over at bartsprcompany.com, whatever it is. So don't hire Bart. I wouldn't do that. I think we get into liable. Yeah.
Yeah.
But if I just say, this is what came to me and this is how I felt when I got it, I think I'd have to, bring Gordon on to make sure I'm not going to set myself up but I just want to scream to the top of the hills. This guy sucks. She's horrible.
I just keep trying to think of something where you need links or where you need clicks, like
Yeah.
you get, where you would want them to click on it to get.
That would be fun to, even if nothing else, just to rickroll them. Like, wouldn't it be fun to make a YouTube video? It's like, hey, thanks so much for your interest in being on my show. And then all of a sudden, never going to get you up. It's like, that would be fun. Just, I might do that.
Do the kids even know what a Rickroll is these days? I mean,
probably not.
It's been so long since we did Rickrolls. Like Rick's had two. He had the original, and then he had the Rickroll. Now, I don't know if the kids know that anymore.
You know why? They might. And this is what's so funny. The Foo Fighters apparently at a sound check started playing that song, and they were at some big event, and Rick Astley was there, and they're like, dude, come up. So if you go to YouTube, there's video of Rick awesome. And Rick Astley's kind of freaking out because I'm assuming he's not playing to stadiums these days. I don't know what his popularity is in the UK, but it's been we're a long way away from whatever it was, 86 or whatever that song.
It was 80. No, 89. I think 89.
I don't know. I saw pictures of Howard Jones yesterday, and I was like,
oh. Well, Gordon, we just lost Gordon Lightfoot, right?
Yeah.
Did I get the name right? Is his first name
Gordon Lightfoot?
Okay, Gordon Lightfoot. Yeah.
Because that tells you.
Thinking maybe he was the DJ on WKRP in Cincinnati. Yeah. I don't know. Did I get the right?
No, Gordon Lightfoot was "If You Can Read My Mind, Love," but he also had that really awesome tune that everybody had a great beat and everybody wanted to dance to about the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. And I think about that song and I'm like, that would so not fly. No. Like just because it kind of sounded like a sea shanty of some sort. But if you want a fun tale, the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. I learned that as a guitar player. We turn up all the reverb. It's like so. It turns out DR says that Rick Astley's still huge in the UK.
Huge.
So, all right. Well, we got a few minutes left. Let's tangle this one. I'm thinking of starting a solo sports podcast, and I need some feedback. I recently decided I'd like to start a solo sports podcast. I've wanted a podcast for years, but it's been hard to try and find someone else to be a co-host due to my work hours. I don't work a 9 to 5. I work weekends and some evenings. I'm a female sports writer in a major metro area. I've been doing this for about 5 years. So I'm assuming 5 years of being a female sports writer. Okay. I cover a few different teams and a couple of different sports. I'd like to do a short 10 to 20 minutes. To me, 20 minutes is not short unless you're comparing yourself to Joe Rogan. I do a short 10 to 20-minute podcast daily or maybe every other day is what she's looking at. I'm not looking to make money or get rich, but it'd be another way to get my voice out there. So I missed that the first time I read it. That makes a difference. I'm knowledgeable about the teams I cover, so there's no shortage of topics. I just don't want to be talking about the same stuff that every other sports writer is talking about, and I don't want to do this shock jock antagonistic shtick that most sports radios guys do these days, which is great fun. They just come in, they're like, "Oh, hey, Steve, here you go. Here's your script. You hate LeBron, and Jenny, here's your script. You love LeBron," and they just go. And they just argue. I'm like, really? People pay money for this? She says, I just don't know how to make my podcast stand apart. I thought about maybe doing a segment where I spend a minute or two talking about a random athlete who played for any of the local teams, not a superstar, more likely a guy that people have forgotten about, or maybe doing a weekly segment reviewing a sports movie. Any suggestions and tips are welcome. And so my original thing, because I didn't see the part where she's like, I'd like to get my voice out there, was flip it. Instead of talking about major teams, why not cover the cover the high school team? Or if there's a, Subs, what is it? Nick Suberling?
Yeah, Nick Suberling.
Nick did a podcast about a minor league soccer team, and what ended up happening is you have a smaller audience because, again, minor league soccer. But the people that found her are like, oh my gosh, this is about my team. Whereas if you do a show, like she says, I want to try not to sound like every other sports person. When you do that, and I have nothing to base this on, but I know a few people that have come to me with sports podcasts, and they're like, I need to grow this. And they're just, in some cases, they're even talking about what they saw on ESPN. And I'm like, man, that's a rough gig.
Yeah.
Because you're up against the mouse and all of their power and things like that. So I would think that you might end up with the same size audience, but more engaged because you're talking about things that you can't get other places versus I'm talking about what everybody else talks about. And I have a small audience, but in reality, how engaged are they going to be? Maybe, they come for the host. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Jim?
I create the podcast about positive things that the team or the players on the team do. And in that way you can maybe get team interviews, but focus on like, hey, what are they doing in the community? Or what are some great things that are, happening? It'd be tough to get going, but once you get a few of those in the can, then the other teammates are like, oh, hey, he was on, Travis Kelce was on that one. Now Patrick Mahomes is like, well, I've got to be on it. Right. So I think you got to get past the imposter syndrome on some of those when you're interviewing really famous people. You do a few and you're like, oh man, I don't know. But I think a great idea would be get some positive stuff out there and really highlight the great stuff they're doing in the community.
I like that idea because they do. And you see it every now and then. They'll be like, the Arizona Cardinals handed out turkeys at Thanksgiving. You're like, yeah, but there's other things because there's the whole Walter Payton Award, and part of that is like the Man of the Year, and part of it is the stuff they do outside of football.
Yeah.
And
they all do great stuff. I shouldn't say they all do. Many of them do great stuff, right? I'm not sure that sentence made sense, but they're doing great things out there. So, and if you can't go right for the major leagues or the whatever it is, start with some local teams. Like they're all looking for some kind of PR. And so meet with the minor league or whatever it is in your jurisdiction and say, hey, I'm just reach out to the team PR and say, hey, I've got this podcast and I'm looking at highlight some of the great things that your players do in our community. They might ask for some examples. So you got to have some things ready. Right. But maybe a great way to start.
Yeah. Coach Dave says a smaller audience because, well, soccer has 3.5 billion fans.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then American football has 40 million fans.
My favorite line in there though is, "I'm not looking to be famous." No, you are.
All
Stop, podcasters. Stop saying that line. I just want to do it for fun, but if I only get 10 downloads, it's not. This isn't fun. You know, you're like, look, we're all in this for downloads, right? We're all in this for some significant moments. We're all in this because we want to reach people. So stop saying that.
Yeah, you got to know your why. And I don't know if somebody said, well, I'm starting a podcast and my primary goal is to make money at this, like, I don't know that anybody is going to like throw things at you.
No.
If you then say, no, I know it's going to take years and, you know, but that's the goal. Like, oh, okay, well, good on you. At least you know.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Have fun. You know, maybe you'll be successful, or maybe you'll do those shady things like
Right.
like we talked about earlier, where you do a 5-minute podcast and then call the
Yeah.
person back to sell them on something.
Yeah. Craig says, I'm in it for the engagement, not the downloads.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, sort of. Yeah, but engagement's numbers still. We're still in it for something, right? And so engagement's still a number of sort, right? It's just a different kind of number. I mean, I personally think engagement's harder to get than downloads, and
Yeah.
so like that's even a smaller subset of it, right? But we're all in this for something,
yeah.
you know.
And sometimes it's multiple things. I mean, I'm in it for the money. I'm in it for when I really help somebody. I had fun at Libsyn. They now let me do occasional coaching, and I had a day of just back to back coaching. And my last 3 people were above the age of 70. And that was so much fun. The guy at the end, man, he's like, man, he goes, I feel empowered. And I was like, it just like put so much gas in my tank. I was like, yes, that was so much fun. Can I do this every day? I don't want to do tickets anymore. I just want to coach 24/7. But it was so much fun. And those, especially those guys, they're 70. Their kids are off either raising their own kids or what. They have a ton of knowledge in their head. And they're like, if the one guy was retired, he's like, I need something to do. He goes, I need a hobby. And he goes, my golf game's hideous. So I want to start a podcast. So, you know, you kind of do what you want to do. Coach Dave says there's so many angles to do with a sports podcast. Yep. That's right. His angle was use sports for life lessons it creates. Yep.
Yeah.
It started as a way to shrink the FAQ in my inbox. That's the president of a nonprofit. Excellent. So, well, holy cow, that went quick today. Jim, what is coming up on the Average Guy TV?
Jay, that's right. Jay Franzi from Franzi and Friends is on, and he asked the question, hey, I want to build a fire pit in my backyard. And so, there's some mechanics to that, but we talk about all the technology things you can add into a
Keep
fire
talking.
pit. Yeah. We talk about all the technology things that you can build, you know, Bluetooth speakers or lighting, or we talk about, you know, how to get like remote power out there. Do you install solar with a battery? Do you run power to it? Can you put an app on your phone to turn the lights on and off? So all those things we cover and I already posted it. Head out to homegadgetgeeks.com.
Yeah, if you want a fire pit, here it is.
Oh, what do we see in there?
You throw a little 90 proof rubbing alcohol.
Yeah.
It's
for like a second. Watch your eyebrows.
It's about 45 minutes.
Okay.
But it's an indoor outdoor, and when I saw the word indoor, I was like, that's not a good idea, because literally the flames shoot out of this thing like up to So for the pyro, for the sun, that's the pyro. It's the indoor.
Well, Solo Stove makes a really small version now. I think they're $79 or whatever, and you can little bit of wood and you roast your marshmallow. Don't do it in the house, friends.
Yeah,
this is for outside.
That's this whole
outside,
thing. You can do s'mores inside. I'm like, that's a bad idea.
Yeah, no,
So,
right on.
Excellent. At the School of Podcasting, I'll be helping you plan, launch, and grow your podcast as always. So thanks to the chat room. Thanks to Mark at podcastbranding.co, Dan at Based on a True Story Podcast, and you for listening. Tell a friend, would you? And become an awesome supporter. So we'll see you next week. Take care, everybody. Oh, yes. Like and subscribe and ring the bell and rate and review, all that fun stuff.